Then all of a sudden, Tennessee becomes like a top 10 defense in the league, and it didn't work out that way. So things changed, but I don't think that Cleveland's D is going to be one of the tops in the league, and I think that Tony Romo is going to have a big day on the road against Cleveland, and definitely plug him in if you have him, like you wouldn't anyway. He's basically a must-start. Pretty much Brady, Manning, Romo, regardless of the matchup, you're going to start these guys, all right? So you don't need me to tell you plug him in. Number 4, though, I have Kurt Warner. Now, here's a guy who just got named the starter of the Arizona Cardinals. Listen, they're playing San Francisco. They're on the road, but they're playing San Francisco. People can light San Francisco up. Hey, listen, I know. I'm a fan. I'm a Niners fan. I don't want to say that people can light the Niners up, but they can. And in this case, they will. Arizona, big offensive day against San Francisco. That's what I think. All right, and Kurt Warner will throw 3 touchdown passes. That's just my guess. At least 2. And well over 200 yards. Anquan Boldin, Larry Fitzgerald, just a nice day for Kurt Warner. I like him at number 4. He might not always be a must-start week to week like the other 3 guys, or even the number 5 guy, Drew Brees. All right, I have Drew Brees penciled in. He's home against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's defense is a little bit better than the other defenses that these guys are going up against. However, Drew Brees, assuming he doesn't get off to such a slow start like he did last year, Drew Brees will have nice numbers against Tampa Bay, against anybody really. Honestly, if he can keep it going from where he left off last year and not be the Drew Brees from the first 4 weeks last season, which was, I think, a fluke. That's not the real Drew Brees. I really think Drew Brees has a nice week against Tampa Bay and every week because Drew Brees is quite potent, honestly. Running backs. Okay, my top 5 QBs: Brady, Manning, Romo, Warner, Brees. Plug them in. Plug them in. You're going to have a nice day there. Running backs. LT against Carolina. Not necessarily the best matchup defensively, however, the best running back. So you have to put him at number 1, unless he's going up against some sort of crazy run-stopping defense that nobody can move the ball on, like a Minnesota or something. But LaDainian Tomlinson against Carolina is going to have a nice day. Not that Carolina has a bad D, but LaDainian is just that good. So LT comes in at number 1. Number 2, I have Brian Westbrook, who is at home against St. Louis. Now, he could have very easily been number 1 because St. Louis has a weak D. The Eagles are at home. Westbrook is fresh. I know he's on the injury report always, but this week he's fresh, all right? Because it's week 1. He hasn't had a nick or a ding or anything. Brian Westbrook, fresh legs, at home against St. Louis equals gigantic numbers, especially in point per reception leagues, which I urge you to be a part of because that's the real way to play fantasy football, honestly. Number 3, Joseph Adai. Again, that Indianapolis against Chicago matchup is going to equal big things for that Indianapolis offense. And you'll notice as I go through this, most of these players are on the same teams. I mean, fantasy football is not rocket science. Look for matchups. You play good players against bad teams. You score a lot of points. Joseph Adai against Chicago will get into the end zone, and he will catch 3 or 4 passes. He might approach 100 yards rushing. He will probably get 30 or 40 yards receiving. And like I said, he will be in the end zone. Pretty much a guarantee. Joseph Adai scores a lot. Against Chicago, he will score. Number 4, I have Marion Barber against Cleveland. Again, another Cowboy against Cleveland. Cleveland doesn't have a real strong defense. Marion Barber is going to be a man on a mission this year. And I know people are worried about Felix Jones cutting into his carries. But let me ask you this. Was Marion Barber worth not playing last year because of Julius Jones? No, you plugged him in anyway. He wasn't even the starter. Right? He's the starter this year. He's going to get more touches than he did last year. And Felix Jones won't cut into his production as much as Julius Jones did. So take Marion Barber's numbers from last year, bump those up because that's what he's getting this year. Marion Barber, a top running back all year long, but especially this week against Cleveland. I like him at number 4. Number 5, I have Adrian Peterson, and I know that people are probably, AP owners are probably wondering where he's been as I counted down my first 4. Where's Adrian Peterson? How could you not have Adrian? Listen, Adrian Peterson, great running back, maybe the most talented in the league. But here's the deal. Minnesota, until they prove they can do something else, besides give the ball to Adrian Peterson, until Tavares Jackson proves he can throw it to Bernard Berrian, which may happen this year, may happen. But until that happens, trust me, people will be keyed in on Adrian Peterson. You saw it in preseason. You're going to see it in the regular season. No matter what, as soon as he touches the ball, there will be 2 guys in his jersey, basically. Do you understand? So Adrian Peterson comes in at number 5 because he's that good, but he's going up against Green Bay, which is one of the top defenses in the league. So he's going up against Green Bay. There for starters. Also, they will be keyed in. A very, very good defensive unit will be keyed in on this one player. So AP owners, this might be one of those weeks, if you remember last year, if you had Adrian Peterson last year, you had those weeks where he would score you 45 fantasy points, but then you had those weeks where he would score you 8. So be careful. This may be one of those weeks for Adrian Peterson owners. However, I still have to put him in the top 5 because I'm not a complete chucklehead. He is Adrian Peterson. You never know. He could have run for 315 yards and 5 scores. All right, he's in my top 5. Wide receivers. Randy Moss, obviously. Again, New England against Kansas City. Offensive production. Randy Moss against Kansas City will get into the end zone. All right, he will get into the end zone. The question is how many times. He better be in your lineup. You're not an idiot. If you have Randy Moss, he's a must-start every week. Basically, all of my top 5 wide receivers are must-starts every week. But if you have them on your team, it's always fun to hear them on a top 5 list. So, number 2, I have Terrell Owens. Again, Dallas against Cleveland. He's Romo's favorite target. I'd say the same applies for T.O. He will get in the end zone. The question is how many times. All right, but T.O. will score. Number 3, Reggie Wayne against Chicago. All right, Colts against Chicago. Easy, but Reggie Wayne's going to have a nice day. He's Peyton's favorite target with it. He's emerged. Even when Marvin Harrison comes back this year, Reggie Wayne's still going to be the guy. You'll see. Marvin Harrison's going to have a big year too. I guarantee he has a bounce back year, and he'll make a lot of fantasy owners happy. Sadly, I could not get him in any of my drafts, and I was eyeballing him, but I couldn't get him. Reggie Wayne, though, will have the better season, and he'll probably land in my top 5 almost every week, to be honest with you. Most of these guys will. It doesn't really rotate much. Number 4, Larry Fitzgerald against San Francisco. Like I said, Kurt Warner's going to have a big day. Fitzgerald's the number 1 target over there. But at the same time, anytime you throw in Larry Fitzgerald, you could kind of flip-flop with Anquan Boldin because you never know. Anquan Boldin might end up having that big, gigantic day where he gets multiple touchdowns. He does that. As a former Anquan Boldin owner, I know he does that. Okay, so he could very easily be flip-flop with Fitzgerald right here. I do like Fitzgerald, though, to have the slight edge. He'll make a big difference for your team this week. Number 5, Andre Johnson. All right, Houston wide receiver Andre Johnson. He didn't exactly slip under the radar this year, but he did miss a lot of games last year, so his production was down. But he scored, I think, in 5 out of 6 games that he played in. I don't know. I'm pulling that up. I'm pretty sure he scored in all but one of the games that he played on a ridiculous streak to score 15 touchdowns. And I think what he does this year is pick up where he left off and hopefully stays healthy. And he'll probably light up that Pittsburgh defense a little bit. Pittsburgh D is traditionally pretty good, but actually lately it's been down. Last year it was kind of down a little bit, but I don't know if people noticed. If the Pittsburgh D doesn't bounce back, I might have to change my Super Bowl pick. But I like Andre Johnson against Pittsburgh this week. I like Andre Johnson against basically anybody if he's in the game. All right, so my